Okay, Elki is going to take us through the articles. How, if you want to ask questions that are attached to an article or a passage, yeah, is over to you, Elki. But there are two hands. There are two hands. Let's see.
I think one is mine. Let me then lower it.
Oh, okay. One is for Emmanuel. Is this?
Yes. No, it's a new hand. Okay. Dr. Onona, before you go, you promised us an email earlier.
Okay, Elke, do we have the email group? Is elearning@unam.na, right? The email group for the
which email is it? Okay, what email are we referring to?
The group
is it for
email
queries
for,
or?
Yeah. Okay, perhaps I'll text my email in the chat box. But
all right. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Onenda, you can unshare so that I can choose. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay. My focus would be on how to embed an article or content that students need to have access to in the process of answering questions that are of an essay type. In other words, questions that students need to actually input the answers by typing them. So it's an essay type of question, but you would want students to first read something or to have a document that will be of reference while they are answering that question. For this to take place, I will first advise on what you need to do first as an editor, because when you are working on Moodle, basically you do a lot of editing. That's why we say the first thing that you do before you add any content or you create any activity on Moodle, you say turn editing on. So what editing implies is that there are various types of editor options, and they have different affordances or what they allow and what they do not allow. The default editor for everyone on Moodle, I will show you in a moment, has got a bit of limitations in terms of what you are capable to do on Moodle. So before you practice embedding a resource such as an article or content that students need, or a passage or a text that students need to have access to or to read in the process of answering a question, the very first thing that you need to do is to change your editor settings. So how do you do this? Whenever you are logged into Moodle, you always know that your username, your name and icon is in the top right corner of your page, of your Moodle page. Right next to it, there's a small arrow pointing down. So that is where you click for you to get this drop-down menu. Okay. The first option is always dashboard. Then you have profile, grades, messages, preferences, logout, and switch row. The option that you need to access for you to be able to access the editor settings is this option of preferences. So again, it's your username at the top of the page. You click on the arrow pointing down to access more menu. You get a drop-down menu, and the option you opt for is preferences. So if you click on that, it then brings you to this page. So you can see that you have quite a lot of preference lists. Please don't be too technical about what you can see on your profile and what you see on mine, because we have different sort of status on Moodle. I have an administrator account, you have a lecturer account. my menu might look different, but the basic things that I'm referring to should be on your profile as well. If you are, let's say, trying to act alongside my presentation. So when you get this list of preferences, the option we are looking for is this one, editor preferences. Okay. I can just enlarge it a bit, editor preferences. So if you click on that, it will give you what are the text editor options that you have. If you click on this this question mark, and you have to make this a habit. In Moodle anyway, if you open a particular activity or function, wherever you find a question mark, it means there is additional information about that, explaining that specific function if you need more information. So wherever you find a question mark, make it a habit of clicking on it to just find out what it's saying, because it would normally explain that particular function that you are dealing with. Right. So the default option that you would find on your account is what we call default editor. And the default editor looks like this. So I'm gonna just save it and just show you how it looks like. And then in comparison to the one that I would recommend, what the differences are, okay? So let me just go back to the course. So remember, we opted for the default editor. So if I turn my editing on, and then I try to create, let's say, let's say create page. So this is quite familiar to you, I'm sure. So these are the settings that you normally see if you use the default editor. You have this arrow that that either show or hides more functions. So if you click on it, you have more functions. So you have the normal text editor functions such as to align. You have the indent. You have the bullets and so on. You have ways of embedding and so on. But there are other functions that would be easily accessible when you use other editors. And just the example, what we normally use when we are embedding a text or a passage, we embed using link. You'll be familiar with this because you use this to embed a link. Maybe you want to link students to a website outside Moodle, or to link them to another page within your Moodle course. So just take note of this particular view that you see here, that if you click on link, the only option you get is the space where you can paste the URL link, and the option of whether you can open that link in a new window or not. Right. Now, I will then show you the other type of editor and what richer options in terms of menu it offers. Okay. Okay, so basically we go to the same route and then we go to editor preferences. Sorry, wrong button there, editor preferences. So the option of the text editor that we opt for the purpose of what I'm trying to, or what we are doing here, is this third option. You have default editor, you have auto editor, and then you have tiny MCE. So the tiny MCE HTML editor is the one that I recommend. for you to be able to basically do what you would like to do ideally when you are embedding a text. So it should be easy to remember. Either remember it as the thread from top or by its name, which is TinyMC HTML. So if we select that, and then we go back to the course, and I do the same thing, which is create a page. You can already see that there's a difference in the look of things. And when I say see more, you can see that there's quite a variety of other options that were not visible or available in the other type of editor. And most importantly, if I open the URL link, you can see now that we have more options. In the previous editor, the only thing that was available is the space where we can paste the link and for us to indicate whether it opens in a new window or not. But you can see that we have more options here. For example, you have this menu under general, under pop-up, under events, and so on. But don't be too daunted by the amount of menus available. The only two types of menus that will be useful or important to us are two, under general and under pop-up, and that's it. So this is just to show you the importance of first changing your editor, type of editor, before you are able to embed a text in on Moodle. You can use various types of resources, but the resource that I recommend for this would be a page. Now, you may have already been introduced to how you can attach a PDF or a Word document as a link that students can open first in an essay. The limitations with documents of such nature is that they are not always supported on the devices that students are using. If a student is using a tablet or a mobile phone and they open a PDF and they don't have a PDF reader, for example, it will be a challenge. So the advantage of using built-in Moodle editing tools or resources, such as Page or Book, is that they are supported within any browser that the student is using on their device, whichever device it is. Okay, so what we then do is that before we create that essay question on the quiz, the first thing we need to do first is to make sure that our article is in place. Now, I indicated that I recommend that you use the option of a page. So I'm gonna scroll to the space where I need to create this page. And basically all you do is add an activity or resource. The option that comes first is always the activities. Of course, resources, you have to select them. This is what I'm referring to create a page. A page is basically a shell where you can paste content. And that content can be in the format of text, images, or anything that you would like your students to have access to while they are answering the questions on the quiz. So I select the page. Okay, so I'm gonna use an example from a question paper. I'm sure we are aware that the library has a collection of past question papers that students can access whenever they are on campus. So I downloaded a question paper for software project management from computer science. And the reason why I did this is because the past examples we have used were kind of like biased towards humanities, like reading text or something that students have to read. So what I have decided to take from this paper is basically this table, because students were given a question where they are given a scenario, right? And this scenario is then provided with additional information that they need to use to answer the questions that are provided. So I will then make use of this particular example. And this should sort of give you an idea of how you can make use of the content that's already on your question paper, especially when you have questions of this type where you have something that students need to assess or evaluate or analyze first before they answer specific questions. So that kind of question can actually be suitable for an essay type of question. Okay, so let me just call this software management text, okay? Now, there are different ways of the Moodle page basically can accommodate any type of content, whether it is text, images, or videos. In fact, you can even have your students watch a short video before they answer a question. So whatever content you can put here is really up to you. Right, now what I have done in the past was to make use of a text. Basically, you can have a text of this type, where all you do really is just copy, highlight, copy the text, and you paste it in the page space as it is. And one of the advantages of this type of editor is that it basically keeps the text as it is with the formatting from the source where you copied it from. But sometimes you may have challenges. For example, your text may look jumbled up, or you'd have some text larger than others. So there is also a way to format your text or to remove any formatting when you paste the text before you go ahead. And on this type of editor, this function is here. It has a TX. How to identify it is normally symbolized with a T and X. Yeah, TX right there. And when I hover my mouse over it, you can see that the words that come up, it says remove formatting. So if I click on remove formatting, you can see that even the bolding of the heading that was there is taken away. So you can then re-edit your text in whichever way you would prefer if there were some formatting issues that you didn't like. Yeah, so that is how simply you can copy and paste the text, and then you can save it. I will quickly show you how a saved text looks like. The one that I've just copied. So if I click on this, basically that is how the text will look like when it's pasted. So you can see that text of this nature, that's what students will then see. So our task now is, how do we make sure that students don't need to leave the quiz for them to come and read this text, that they can access this same passage or text or article while they are still on the quiz. So that is basically what I'm trying to demonstrate here. So having done this already, so the option that I will demonstrate then is how to paste an image. Because you would be familiar with the fact that the question papers that are on the repository, on the library, are scanned. So you can't copy from them because they are images basically. Or this is also an example of if you have an image that students need to, a diagram page that students need to read or to be referring to while they're answering a question. So one way to do that is basically to copy it as an image and then paste it here. I'm not sure whether other editors, I can't really proclaim that other editors cannot do it, but I can guarantee you that with this type of editor that I have just demonstrated, you don't even need to paste that image in an image editor first, save it as an image, and then upload it the normal way. Normally when we upload text, or sorry, an image, we come here and say insert image, and then you browse. I'm sure the process was already demonstrated by Mr. Unona. So with this type of editor, you don't even need to go that route. You can basically take a screenshot of the image that you want and paste it here directly. And this is what I'm gonna do. So we go back to that computer science paper. And what I would like is this list of tasks. By the way, what I'm using Firefox Reader, or rather Foxit Reader, not Firefox Reader, but Foxit Reader. On Foxit Reader, you have the option of a snapshot. So if you select the snapshot, you can basically highlight anything on any document, and then if you release, then that particular image has been selected to the clipboard, and then you can paste it anywhere you want. So you can see that this is the content that I have copied as an image. And then if I go back to my page, all I do really is to use, now it's important for you to learn how to use keyboard functions for cut and paste or copy and paste, because the majority of us, what we prefer to do is to right click and then paste. It can work, but sometimes it may not be possible in some browsers. You may be required to make use of your keyboard shortcut. So for pasting is basically Control and V. And then you can see that the image that I copied from that question paper is pasted here. Now, you can see here that the slider is quite wide. In other words, the image is too big. We don't want an image that is too big, because our students will then not be able to comfortably read what we want them to read, especially if they are having small screens. So we need to change the size of this image. So how do we do that? Any image that you upload or you paste, just like I did, all you do really is just highlight it or click on it, and then you go to this option of edit image. You then go to appearance, and then there's an option here for dimensions. So we need to change these dimensions. Sometimes you need to play around, like you put the numbers there and then see the size that it changes to. If you like it, you keep it. If you don't, you increase it or decrease it. So you can play around with numbers until you are happy. So let me just put 800 here by 600. Then we say, okay. So I look at this image and I feel it's rather too small. So now I have a point of reference. So it means if I come here, I would see, oh, so it has actually moved it from the option that I wanted. So I will then change it to, let's say, 700. Okay. And then if I say okay, I would say, well, there isn't too much sliding, so that means the image is not too big. So I'm happy with the image. This is what I want students to see. Remember, if they were having my question paper in front of them, this is what they will see. They will see my instruction. You have agreed to develop a simple website for a client. The following tasks have to be done. So this is what I want my students to be able to see, the tasks. And then after that, then they would have the questions, all right? So I have the tasks that students need to access. I have pasted them in my page. So basically all I need to do now is play with other settings. The only setting that you need to play with is the common module settings. And I'll explain why. There are normally, when it comes to common module settings, there are normally 3 options. This is to control the visibility of the content to the students. The first option is to make it available to students so that whenever the students come to your course, they can access that content right away. So show on course page, it means it's accessible. The second one, hide from students, it means it would be there, you as a lecturer can see it, but it will be hidden from students. So in other words, students do not see anything that is hidden from them. It wouldn't even appear. Normally as a lecturer, you would see items that are hidden from students. They just have a text below it saying hidden from students. But students wouldn't even be able to see anything. It's basically just a blank space. So these two options, we don't want them. We don't want students to see the content. The challenge of having them see the content is that we don't want them to see this page before the exam, because it's, of course, although the questions are not there, it's related to our exam. So we don't want them to access it before the exam. Hide from students. If we hide it, it means even if we link it somewhere else, students will not be able to access it even if they click on the link. So the option we go for is the third one, which is make available but not show on course page. In other words, it's available when you link it somewhere else. Like if you put a link in the forum discussion, or you put the link like we're gonna do now in a quiz, it will be available to the students, but on the course page, they will not be able to see it. So that's the option we go for, and then we save and return to the course. So all I'll do now is to just open that page so that you'll be able to see how it looks like. So this is the page which we just opened. So if I click on it, you can see this is what students will be able to see, the image that we just pasted. Okay, so how do we then copy the link of this content to our quiz? There are two options really. The first one is to open the resource, in this case, the page that you want to open. Once it's open like this, then it means the URL, the URL link that is in the browser will basically bring you to this page. So if I highlight this URL link and copy it, this link would be the correct one that will bring the students to the same page. So that is one option. The other option is basically to go to the resource, in this case, this page that you want to share. You right click on it, and then you have various options. But the option we are looking for is the one that says copy location link, or rather copy link location. So if you click the link to this particular resource, this page is copied to the clipboard, and wherever you go and you try to paste, that link will then be pasted. So basically we are done with our first step, or maybe second step, because I said the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you have the right editor. Once you have the right editor, then I recommend that you make use of page. You then paste your content on the page, or you type it in, or you upload it on the page. Once the content is there, then basically you are ready to go to your quiz. So this is the quiz that we are working on. So we basically come here and we say edit quiz, because we want to add a new essay question. Right, so what do? I then say add new question, and the type is essay. Now, what question am I giving to this particular essay? Now, I need to go to my question paper and find out the types of questions I have that are related to this quiz. Now, this particular one, I have already done it as an example, so I will actually do the question B, which is, what is the date of completion and cost according to the plan? What quote and completion date would you advise giving to the client? So I would just abbreviate or shorten this name of the question, of this particular question is date of completion, right? And I have already typed out this question. So I'll basically just copy this, date of completion. And that's what I put here. And then what do I need here? What I need here is basically instruction to the student. The student needs to know, what do they do? I don't put the question first. I need to put instruction, because what's going to come first is the link to that article. So I'll put the instructions here of what students need to do. And then the link to the article, and then the actual question that students need to complete. So I already have the stem of the question somewhere else. I'm not gonna waste my time with that. So let me just come back here. Sorry, where I want to go is to the edit quiz so that I can find the question that I have already created earlier, right? So I come here. Okay, so we have an instruction that tells the student you have agreed to develop a simple website client. It's basically that instruction that is on the question paper, if you remember. So I basically copied and pasted this. Okay, well, I just translated this particular statement and put it on the quiz, right? So that is coming first as instruction to the students. So this is the same type of instruction that I'm going to put on the second question. So it's always important to indicate to the students where to click in order for them to access the article. I could easily just have, let's say, put the content where I'm going to put the link and not put that particular instruction of click here. But from an instructional design perspective, you have to mention things, even those that are obvious, because you cannot predict what students will be thinking or feeling during the writing of the exam. So you put all the information, even information that may appear redundant. So I have put here, click here, just to indicate that students would need to click here. So you can see that I have text here, which I plan to add a link, but there's no link at the moment because you can see that it hasn't changed color. So that doesn't matter. So like I said, first of all, it's important to put instruction followed by the link where the article would be, and then the question itself. So let me just put the question itself here. And as you can see, this is the second question on our paper. So if I take you back to the question paper, this is basically question B. Yeah. So that is the same question B that I will paste here. Now let me just check how many marks is question B again. So I come to question B, 6 marks, right? So that means I have to put the default mark here is 6 marks. Now, the most important thing, now the students need that article because they need, for them to answer this question, they need to have access to that article. So what do? We then go back to the area where we had created our pages. And remember, our page is this one called software management or software management text. I right click on it, say copy link location. Or remember, the other way is also to open the page itself, and then you come here and you highlight the URL link and then copy it. So whichever is comfortable for you to remember. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so then I come back here, and all I do really then, I think it's really important now for you to pay attention here. What we are now doing is to link that particular page to the essay question itself, because this is what students will see. So we highlight the text that students will need to click on for them to be able to get that article to open. So I highlight it, And then what do I look for? I look for the option to link. This option or this universal function that looks like a chain. So you click on that, and of course, the pop-up comes up that I had just demonstrated earlier. So it asks for link URL. So that is where we paste it. So that is step number one. Basically, the landing page is general. It asks for the link. You paste it there. So that is step number one. Step number two, you have to instruct Moodle, how should that page open? Should it open in the same window? We don't want it to open in the same window, because if it does, then it means the student will actually be forced to leave the page where the question is, and then they lose access to the quiz, and then they're gonna have to come back to the quiz afterwards, which is gonna be disturbing. So we don't want that. Do we want it to open in a new window? No, because if it opens in a new window, it means it will basically just open in a new tab, which means students again lose view of their quiz. We don't want them to lose the page where the question is. So what we want is for the page to pop up so that it is visible to them, but they still have access or visual access to their original question where they were. So the option we go for is the one at the very bottom, which is open in top frame, right? Normally what it does, it covers or replaces the open frames, but because we are going to set it to a particular size, it will not cover the student's whole window, which means they will see the pop-up window and they will still continue to see the window where their question is. I hope we are on the same page. So this is the option that we go for, the one at the very bottom. So you basically just select it, but we are not done. The option of title, that is not important. You can basically leave it. Class, again, not important. You can leave that. I indicated earlier that there are only two menus that we deal with, the general and the pop-up. So we are done with the general, where we basically paste the URL link and indicate how the page should open. The next one is the pop-up. The very first thing you need to do here is to activate or to check the box next to JavaScript pop-up. So you just check that box. Basically, it's the only box that you check on this page. So that is the step number one that you do on this second page of pop-up. The second action is to paste the same link that you pasted earlier. Remember, under general, we pasted our link here. So in pop-up, we need to paste the same link here. Window name, don't worry about that either. What about the size? Now, the size matters, because if it is too big, then it covers the whole window when it pops up and students lose visual access to the question they were answering. If it's too small, perhaps the content won't be visible and you force students to scroll. So the size that we recommend is 750 by 750. Okay, so you just type there 750 by 750. I can hear you taking notes, that's good. Okay, so again, here you don't need to select anything else. This was selected by default, so we basically say insert. And immediately we can see that, okay, our link has been effectively linked because the color has also changed from black to blue, right? So, of course, if you need to provide additional information such as grader information and so on, that has already been addressed. But basically, once you have put your instruction, put the link to the article, put your question, ensure that the marks of the question are available, just to save that question. And that's what I'm going to do now. So I'll scroll all the way down and save the question. Okay, so our question is date of completion. So you have already been shown how to test the view of the question. So I will then click here for the question to open up. But because the question opens up in a pop-up window, and I also expect my article, this article, to open in a pop-up window, this is not the best way to test. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and review the quiz or preview the quiz. So I'm gonna go all the way back. And then preview the whole quiz, but my interest is really just to test that particular question. So I will say preview, so that it's almost in the same, it behaves in the same way it will behave when my students are taking the quiz. Then I say start attempt. Then I have my questions here. Okay, now the question I'm interested in is the question, I think it's question 4 or 5. Remember, it's the question that says project, okay, it's not this one, I think it's the 5th one. Yeah, it's the question that says, okay, in any case, this is our question. So this is what students will see. They will see the instructions. You have agreed to develop a simple website for a client. The following tasks have been done. Click below to access the tasks, then answer the questions afterwards. Click here. Surely students cannot miss this particular link. And then of course they have the question there, and they'll be expected to provide their answer here. So what we want is that this, this page should not force the students to leave this page. It should pop up so that they will continue to be on the same page as long as they can then see the quiz. So if I click on it, it pops up. So that's what happens when you link an article this way. So students still have access to the list of tasks that they need to have access to, and they can even perhaps put it aside. They can resize if they want to themselves, like so, and they can scroll up and down, but they still have the original page where they're answering the test open. So basically that is the advantage of creating an option of linking an article using a Moodle page that opens in a pop-up window so that it does not disturb the students, but they still have access to the content that you want them to have access to. So you can see that if I go to another question, you can basically have, okay, if I can just take you back to that question from the original question paper. We have 3 questions, A, B, C. All of them are based on the same information. So that means I need to create 4 essay questions and paste the same article on those 3 questions. So that's what I have done. Like, for example, if I go to, is it question 1 or 2? Just a moment. Okay, so question 2, we have another question that says, draw up a complete project plan and costing. But we can see that there is click here, but there's no link. That means I did not link that particular page on this question. So how do I do this? I basically open. I copy the link to the location of where the page is. I think you remember we just did this. So you highlight, you activate the link option, you paste your link. The option we want is the one at the bottom, open in top frame. And then we go to the second menu, which is pop-up. We activate JavaScript. We link or paste the same link, and we basically do nothing else except insert. Our number of questions are already, sorry, marks are already there. So all we do really is just save changes. So if we do a review, just like we did with the first one, you'll notice that the same content will basically, sorry, I said edit, I should say preview. The same content that the other question had would be available on this same question. So you can basically link the same content that is relevant to multiple questions and link it to all those questions where it's relevant to. So here's our question. If I click on it, okay, I think there's an issue that we didn't do here. And the thing that we didn't do here is that we did not specify the size. That's 750 by 750. If you do not put it there, it then opens in a new tab. You can see that if a student was answering this question, now they are on a new page and their question is on another page. That is what we try to avoid. So I need to make sure. Yeah.
There's a hand from Cecilia, maybe it's
Okay, let me just quickly rectify the issue that was here, the reason why the particular page didn't pop up. So if we go to pop up, you can see that the size was not specified. So if I specify it, and I update and save this, then we have the expected pop-up of the window. Great, I think I can attend to some of the questions that are available at the moment then. Cecilia?
Yes, so you said that you can insert the link to each question, right? So let's say I have that text and there are about 10 questions based on that text. Do I have to insert the link to each of the 10 questions? I don't know if you got my question.
Sorry, if you can just go through again.
Okay, I have a text, right? And I've created a link for that text.
Yeah.
And I want my students to answer 10 questions based on that text. Do I insert the link to each of the 10 questions?
Yes. The reason why we do that is because you don't want questions to move back to a previous question just to find the article. Under normal circumstances, the student, okay, we know that even in our question papers, you may have a passage that is on page 2, and let's say the questions are on page 3, 4, up to 5. Sometimes, even manually, students find it difficult to keep going back and forth. They will actually tear out that page so that it's available right in front of them while they're answering that question or those questions to which that passage is based on. So it's just a technologically, it's even easier to make it more convenient for students. And remember, we even recommend that you use sequential in your quiz, which means students cannot go back to a question. So if you only limit the link to that passage or article to one question, but students need to have access to it to answer the rest of the questions, they wouldn't be able to go back. So they wouldn't be able to satisfactorily or answer the question. So you need to link that passage on every question so that a student can actually close that pop-up window because they have no idea whether the next question is still relevant to that window or not. And then when they go to the next question, they click on the link. Oh, it's the same article. Okay, but it's asking about different aspects of this same passage. So that's the reason why it's important to link that same passage on every question where it's relevant to.
Okay, can I not list them under that same, let's say you have question 1, right? And then you have inserted the link. Can I not list all the questions based on that in just under one question. I don't know if I'm clear on that.
Yeah, that's a good point, but it depends. It basically depends on how you do grading. If it will be easier for you to grade different answers under one essay question, then you can basically go ahead and do that. Why it would make sense for example, to separate these questions as I opted to, like we have a question about we have a question about drawing up a complete project plan, and then we have another one which is asking what is the, so of course you can also do this, and then students would have to write A, put their answer, B, put their answer, C, put their answer.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Okay.
It depends on how long it will take or how long the question is. Definitely, you can also put all the questions on one page, and students will then have to answer using the same naming convention. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And of course, if I open this reading text, which is of course different, you will also see that from another disciplinary area, you can have a text that is just having text that students then need to read first.
There is a hand from Hamakari.
Before they can answer this. Yes, Hamakali, go ahead.
All right. I also have a question. Speaking from the side of the center, for example, where we use longer texts of 20 pages or 15, is this the best way to go about it as well, or there's another
one? Okay. Quick question. Is it a normal practice for you to provide a 25-page article in an examination?
It can be 10, or sometimes it can be 10, because for example, in English for academic purposes, students are trying to demonstrate that they can deal with academic texts.
Okay. For that purpose, given the limitation of the technology, because it's really, okay, we really advise that you shouldn't require students to keep scrolling for information. So we would then rather recommend that you design your questions such that all questions that are related to page 1, you know, you then design, create a page of, let's say, the first 200 words, and then all the questions that are related to that content, you put them on one essay question, and then on the next, you then copy the next page and so on. But to create, because remember, in an HTML, you wouldn't have different pages where students would flip through. It will be one continuous thing that they'll keep scrolling until they go to the bottom. See? So to avoid that, I would rather recommend that you segment your article into different components, and then set your questions as relevant as they are relevant on the breakdowns that you have made of your article. Yeah, it would require you to reimagine your article or your assessment approaches and modify them a little bit so that students are not disadvantaged, because students scrolling through a text of that is long, where they keep scrolling, it will just be not ideal. That would be my answer to that.
Yeah, the only challenge I foresee is that part of what we assess is navigation of an article. And now if I have to pick a piece for the students, like I'm doing what they were supposed to do for them. For example, if I ask them what is the purpose of the article, and then I paste the introduction for them there, when they were supposed to know where to go themselves, then okay, maybe it's the challenge that we cannot go in terms of technology.
Yeah, it looks like, okay, then it looks like then the option for you would be that you rather maintain your article in PDF format. And then just warn students ahead of time that they will need to make use of a computer that has a browser supporting PDF reader. Because with a PDF linking, students will then be able to, scroll through pages. Let me see, do I have an example of a PDF open here? Yeah, I have an example of a PDF open here. So for example, you can scroll through a PDF like this, where students
I think this
see one page at a time. Yeah, where they see one page at a time, but it's still open within a browser. So I think for you, you may consider making use of a PDF instead of a page.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have also promised that because it's really kind of difficult to remember all these steps at once, we plan to create a short video. Okay, in any case, we don't need to create a video because this session is recorded, but we'll also create like a user guide, like a few pages that we can then share with you just to show the steps again from step 1 to the last step on how to embed a text in this way. And as the colleague has just indicated, this option is not suitable for all disciplinary areas. Some may have to maintain or retain the usage of linking a file, like a PDF. Of course, we recommend a PDF instead of a Word document because PDF readers, most browsers come with PDF readers embedded or part of the browser, but a Word document will be difficult because we cannot predict that all students have Word readers on their PCs. Yeah, from my side, I'm basically done with the demonstration, unless there are more questions. Mr. Unona, are there any more questions?
Erki, can I ask a question, please, Ms. Nandago here?
Yes, Ms. Nandago.
I'm having challenges. This is also actually in terms of language teaching. I'm having challenges when I'm trying to set up questions on grammar where I have multiple blank spaces in a paragraph or in a sentence where students have to write in answers themselves. Now, how do I go about doing that? Because in the short answer questions, you only have one blank space. But if I need, for example, to have 2 or 3 blank spaces, how do I go about doing that?
Okay, Ms. Nandago, I think we will need to come back to you on that. Mr. Unona, just take note of that question, how to create multiple spaces within one question where students need to input the text directly themselves and not drag and drop, not do matching or drop down, but to type in the answers themselves. We will have to come back to you on that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
there is a question from Dr. Sad.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to ask something. Our experience with sorting out examinations like MCQs and so on, it's a bit of a struggle to copy text from external format into the exam format. I know that there was a lecture on the model demonstration. Can you go through that in a quick way, or can you send us a link which is simplifying the steps or maybe written steps? Because if we have a way that on model, it's like easy to copy from a Word format or something like this, it will make life very easy. Thank you.